This is ATL Day Ones, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta. And it starts now.
Welcome into ATL Day Ones with Jarvis and Tenitra. Just want to say thank you for making ATL Day Ones your first listen of the day. Remember, we're free and available wherever you download your podcast. And wherever you download your podcast, make sure that you leave us a 5-star review. We really appreciate that in advance. And also, special announcement, we are on Roku and Amazon Fire. So if you want to see our mugs on the big screen, go ahead and check us out there and download the Locked On Sports Atlanta app on those particular platforms, and we will pop right up. I promise you that. If it doesn't, drop it in the comments.
No.
You know, I can help you out. I got a little IT background where I can get things popping. Now, I'm going to get things popping for you today because we're going to start off talking about whether or not it's time for Nate to switch things up. And are we acting like we forgot about Drake? And last but not least, and for the culture, McDonald's is running it back. But do we want it? We'll talk about all that. But first, we got to talk about Sunday. You know, the Hawks lost to the Charlotte Hornets 126-109 on Sunday. And obviously, we talked about yesterday on the show, T, how Nate McMillan was very upset, and he basically laid it out saying, hey, we didn't play no blanking defense. But I think another thing that kind of stood out to me on the other side of that offensively is that the Hawks have been really struggling shooting from deep. And I think that there was one little slither that, you know, we talk about as far as Nate switching it up. You know, where he does not like playing rookies. But once A.J. Griffin got into the game, T, the dude can shoot it. Are we starting to think about Nate potentially changing his whole philosophy when it comes to playing rookies early?
Oh, yeah. If you saw A.J. Griffin in game 1, that's the change. Because you may not have seen him until game 71 last
right. In a blowout.
He blowed out about 2 minutes before the final whistle. That's just the reality of it. But yeah, A.J. Griffin gives them a bit of a spark off the bench and gives them some of their only perimeter offense because they're getting it from Onyeka Okongwu inside and maybe your shallow, medium shots, but the deep shot, really you only have A.J. Griffin. I mean, let's just be honest. So I don't know that Nate would necessarily change the rotation because you're still going to pull double O off the bench first in all likelihood, especially because Clint's not quite Clint Capella yet. So he's going to put exactly. So because Clint's not Clint yet, and because you can also switch double O between the 4 and the 5 to give John Collins a break, he probably always comes off the bench. Now the question becomes, like you said, whether or not you continue to go with an Aaron Holiday who provides you with some solid defense, whether you continue to go with him off the bench first and, you know, AJ comes in like maybe as the 8th or 9th man, or whether you move him up. Now it depends. Here's my thing. I think at least for tomorrow, we'll see what happens Friday, but you know, they play Detroit in a kind of weird back-to-back in Detroit. It's weirdest thing. So they're playing them tomorrow, and as everybody knows, they're the suckiest team in the league that the Hawks have had trouble with. Not the suckiest team, just suckiest for the Hawks. Yeah. So they have given they gave the Hawks the business the entirety of last season. So Jarvis, I wouldn't be surprised if the rotation still leans defensively for the bench mob first, and then bring in the offense if you need it. Because let's face it, the first 2 games, that is how the Hawks were able to win, regardless of a slow start on offense.
Yeah, and I think rebounding is going to be the key too, right?
Yes.
Because
Yes,
that's where they absolutely got killed. We talked about the guy Richards who had 20 and 11. That was his career high, obviously. You know, we're talking about a second-round pick who nobody really expected to play like that, but he did against the Atlanta Hawks. And I think that's partly because of, like you mentioned, Clint Capella not necessarily being himself. And then you have another wing in DeAndre Hunter who's never really been a rebound guy. I think he was averaging like 3 rebounds for his career. So that's the thing that along with the scoring, like you mean, getting somebody who can come in and get a spark for you and shoot better from deep. But you have to have people make a concerted effort to go out there and rebound. DeJounte Murray has been doing that. He's been really good with that. But DeAndre Hunter and Clint Capella, they're gonna have to step it up because you can't have big no name bigs out here just having career games against you night in and night out.
And I think people have to be patient with Trae Young as well, because that's where
Yeah,
obviously you get a lot of your perimeter shooting, but give him
of
all
course.
the credit in the world for hovering around 4 or 5 rebounds for these first 3 games. So let's
It
just
helps.
exactly, let's just talk about and respect the commitment that he's giving to defense, regardless of what his offense is looking like, except a little bit of hero ball. Let's admit, in the third quarter, that's honestly how the Hawks got back in, but maybe he played hero ball just a little too long. So
Yeah.
I think that's the piece we got to remember as well as this team gels, not just overall, but as they figure out their defensive identity, because we pretty much know their offensive identity, then we're going to start to see more success. And this is something I thought about as well. One of the things Nate McMillan mentioned to me, as well as Landry Fields, was the vocal leadership that DeJounte Murray brings to the table, right?
Yes.
And Trae obviously is the leader of the team, but DeJounte just brings a different style of leadership. And I wonder subtly, not that this is the number one problem or the only problem, right? There were a couple
Right.
of different things that we saw in that
Yeah.
loss. But what I do expect as well is as that team begins to gel and they know their roles and kind of assume the positions, DJ can kind of pipe up a little bit more, right? When he
Yeah.
sees this thing kind of going off the rails, whereas we didn't quite see that in him in game 3. Saw a little bit more demonstrative in games 1 and 2, and even in the preseason. So I think that's one of the things as well. Your floor general or your co-general will have to kind of be that demonstrative voice that says, hey, I'm seeing what's happening as I'm, here in the backcourt, bringing this ball back up. I'm seeing, because he's got great court vision.
Right.
Now it's just
Of course.
time to utilize that great court vision and just be the vocal leader that he is. I think that'll be another way to get him back on track.
Oh, I have no doubt in my mind that he's going to do that. I think that a lot of times when you're the new dude, there are some things that you can kind of take your time with. But I
Mhm.
think that in certain moments he's kind of understanding, and I'm sure he's learned that pretty quickly. Is that he's going to have to be the guy to be vocal to the media as well in the locker room and on the court,
Yep.
because he even talked about after the Hornets loss, he said, "Hey, we have to be better defensively, and it starts with me." So that's that accountability piece, right? Because that's why Nick McMillan doesn't mind saying, "Hey, I know what I'm getting in this guy, and I expect him to be that leader and be more vocal." So I'm not too concerned about that part of it, because DeJounte Murray definitely has that part down to the T. Now, I think one thing, T, that came out not too long after we finished our show yesterday was the
Mhm.
news that Matt Ryan was going to be benched for the year. And we all know that he was dealing with a shoulder injury. But
Mhm.
Frank Wright even took it a step further and said, it doesn't matter whether or not he was hurt or not. This is going to be the decision that I was making. So Sam Ellinger is now the starter for the Indianapolis Colts for the rest of the season.
Yeah. Crazy, crazy. And I thought about this, Jarvis. I was like, first of all, I just feel like Matt Ryan deserves better,
Mm,
because I'm not saying that Matt Ryan didn't have a poor year last year in his last year with the Falcons. I'm
right.
not saying that he hasn't had a poor start to the season as well, but part of the reason Matt Ryan went to the Colts was because he thought he was going to get more out of the Colts just in terms of protection.
Supporting
And
cast was better, right?
exactly.
Yeah,
There you go.
easily.
So
Yeah, easily.
remember, Jarvis, there were people who were saying, ooh, this might put Matt Ryan back in the Super Bowl conversation.
Yeah,
That's how confident people were in what the Colts brought to the table, as you said, in the supporting cast, with the receivers, with the run game, and with the O-line. Let's be honest, he didn't really get anything from anybody. So for me, I was like, I would prefer for you to just take him out. He's got, a grade 2 shoulder injury separation. So that's a 2 to 4 weeks, probably 4 weeks, because I mean, obviously he's an older player, right? And let's
right.
just kind of see how it goes. But for you to say you have 10 more games in the season and no, thank you, Matt Ryan, we're good to go. That first and foremost, that kind of bothered me. I
That's
felt like, okay, he
yeah.
deserves better.
Yeah, and now let's go ahead and put the elephant in the room is what he hasn't played well, right?
Right.
I think he's leading the league in fumbles, and
Yes.
with Marcus Mariota not like literally right behind him. It's kind of
Right.
funny that that works out like that. But anyway, I think that has to be stated, right? We have to state
Yes.
that factor. But I think that, and Frank Wright kind of touched on this yesterday too, when he was saying how they didn't hold up their end of the deal because everybody knew that their offensive line was great. Quentin Nelson, probably one of the best interior offensive linemen in the entire NFL. And I know John Chuckery and I always cream about like, dang, Indianapolis got a nice offensive line,
Yes.
but they just haven't played well for whatever reason this year.
Mhm.
And when you couple that with not being able to protect Matt, because we know he's not running from anybody, he's not getting away from anyone.
Right.
We've seen that for the past 3 or 4 years behind this struggling offensive line here in the city.
Mhm.
So all of those factors come into play when you're saying, okay, he makes the decision, but it just seems like you said, it's a little disrespectful. Like, you almost kind of feel sorry for Matt because at the
Yes.
end of the day, that dude don't have a solid career. You
Right.
know, whether or not you believe he's a Hall of Famer or not, it
Mhm.
just seems like this is what happens though when you have guys that are played. They play one year too many, regardless of
Mhm.
age.
So I'm going to throw two things out there, Jarvis, and we'll be quick with it because I know we could go on about these two particular questions, but I still
Of
wanted to
course,
throw them out there because it's been a debate
right,
all everywhere, social media, in person, et cetera, et cetera. And it goes back to what you just said about being a Hall of Famer, right?
right,
And you think about whether or not this is the apparent end to Ryan's career, right? Does
right. Yeah,
this kind of thing cast doubt on him possibly being a Hall of Famer? Because it's always been a question. It's some people say yes, some people say no, and some people sit on the fence. I mean, do you think that I know personally, I don't think this is going to mar this for him because I believe that the voters can actually pay attention to his full body of work. I
mhm,
also think that the bigger challenge, and this I got from the leaders, those who are over the Hall of Fame,
mhm,
the biggest challenge is going to be you don't have a lot of Falcons in there. And so normally when you have a lot of players like their teams, their franchises, Steelers, Cowboys, Packers, they don't need advocates because they're those franchises, right?
right.
So when your
Yeah,
players come up for Hall of Fame, boom, you're going to get in probably eventually.
right. Yeah.
Falcons don't have a legacy in the Hall. So there's nobody legacy wise to really advocate for him, save Deion Sanders. But ultimately speaking, you also don't have the piece that comes from the media nationally where there's that kind of respect. So, no, I still believe he's going to get in, but I don't believe that this into his career is going to keep him out. I believe the factors I just mentioned are going to be more of the challenge.
Yeah, like either you think Matt Ryan should be in the conversation for a Hall of Famer or you don't. It doesn't seem like there's no gray area when it comes to that. I know it's especially in the city. I think that he should at least be in the conversation. I'm
Yeah,
not saying he's a guaranteed a Hall of Famer. And
same.
at the end of the day, 5 years from now, people won't even remember more than likely that, or 10 years from now, when he's up in those conversations, people will have forgotten about the Colts regime, because when you're talking about what 6 games in and
Yeah,
it's pretty much over,
yeah.
yeah, that's gonna be pretty easy to forget. What you don't want to forget is betonline.net, because that's the website that you need to go to. Why, Jarvis? Is it the website to go to? Because this is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your betting needs, find all your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. So, I was checking out some things, right? I was going through some odds, right? And I was trying to check out and see what was going on with Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. Now they're playing against the Florida State. They're playing against the Noles,
Mhm.
and to no surprise, Florida State is favored by 23 points. So yeah, you could take that what you will, right? If you're trying to figure out whether or not you should find out whether or not Georgia Tech is going to cover that spread,
Mhm.
or Florida State is going to get that easily, and Georgia Tech is going to ride out with Brent Key and probably lose the rest of the season. You can go to betonline.net because they have all your sports wagering information, and they also have live in-game betting, scores, and podcasts. You listen to us for information about Locked On Sports Atlanta and Atlanta sports scene.
Mhm.
Go to Bet Online. They have all the podcasts and the information that you need to make a sound decision so you can make some money. Because that's what it's all about, right? You're not doing this just for fun. Well, some of you might like gambling for fun, but if I'm a gamble, I'm going to go gamble to win some money. So guess what you need to do? Go to Bet Online today or use your mobile device to learn more about the action happening today, because Bet Online is where the game starts.
Now, hopefully, the game and the season will get a restart for the Falcons come Sunday. They take on the Panthers. They are back home, and most of the attention is being paid to the passing game. What
Yes.
in the world are the Falcons going to do to jumpstart the passing game? And it's interesting because our guy, Josh Kendall, over at The Athletic, made a bit of an observation Sunday about Drake London. Apparently, he was incognito after the game and was not available for the media. So,
Right.
if that's true, and Josh, he's a great reporter,
Yeah,
so we're going to
Josh,
assume
good
that
dude, solid
Josh
dude.
said
Yeah,
it, it's the truth. Then you kind of wonder, what does that actually mean? And don't get me wrong, if he's frustrated, that's okay. He has every right to be frustrated. If he's targeted one time, one catch for 9 yards, maybe I'd be frustrated as well. Then I thought about this, and I've got a question and a statement all in one. At the end of the day, is it time for Arthur Smith to really figure out how to hold up his end of the bargain somehow, some way, getting London and Kyle Pitts the ball? Because if that was out of frustration, you certainly don't want your young players to tap out at this point in the season.
And I'll start with Kyle Pitts because we've had some conversation about him, because I think that Kyle Pitts is kind of used to it, right? Because a lot of times when players come in, a lot of times those organizations want to make sure those guys are doing and saying all the right things, right?
Yes.
They want them to uphold a certain standard, and we
Mhm.
already know how the Falcons are. They're gonna make sure their players are indoctrinated into what you're supposed to say, when you're supposed to say it, how you're supposed to do it. And Kyle Pitts has pretty much got that down pack in year 2.
Right.
He ain't gonna say anything that make people think that he want the ball or he's complaining or no malcontent. Now that's not going down. However, Drake London is a rookie, and I want to go back to right before the Atlanta Falcons drafted Drake London, and I was going through, doing my research, and I started looking at some things, and one of the things that wide receiver coach TJ Yates said, he said he believed Drake London when he and Arthur Smith went out there to visit with Drake London in those pre-draft interviews, because Drake London said, "I hate DBs. I don't like those dudes." That means what? He's a competitor. He doesn't like losing. Like, he knows he's out there winning matchups, and he is. Just to go ahead and do that, just to go ahead and let you know, because guess what, T? I did a little bit more research. I know in the first 2 games, Drake London had 19 targets, 13 catches, and 160 yards and a touchdown. Had his first touchdown against the New Orleans Saints. You know what his numbers were the next 5 games? 25 targets, T.
Like that whole.
Come on now. Like, something is wrong. There is an issue there, because I understand it if we because we got a full snapshot of Kyle Pitts last year, right? The entire season.
Yeah.
Like, he was able to get 1,000 yards. He had the targets and all that stuff, but he was only able to get in the end zone once.
Right.
I get it. We kind of figured out maybe possibly what the issue was there, but Drake London didn't practice after that preseason game, that first preseason game, maybe essentially like his first catch. After his first catch, they shut him down. And this dude, mean tell me this dude can coming off of that, whatever the injury was, how serious it was, and come in the first 2 games of the regular season, and up until maybe like a few hours before the game, he really didn't know whether or not he was going to play or not.
Right.
And he comes in 19 targets, 13 catches, and 160 yards in the tub. And now he barely gets those amount of targets over the next 5 games, T.
Yeah.
Like, it's a problem. And you know what? And I'm putting all that stuff together. Now that this is how I feel, T. I'm not surprised that he wasn't nowhere to be found when the media was allowed to go into the locker room after the game. I don't blame him whatsoever.
Right, because and you got to kind of respect it if you can get away with it, because you'd rather not say anything. It's almost like our parents used to tell us, if we can't say anything
nice
good,
to
don't say anything at all. So tap out. If that's the reason you tapped out, Drake, we are okay with it.
Understood,
because,
brother.
you're frustrated because you saw the productivity and nothing has changed. I mean, Kyle Pitts is still getting stuffed. So you're still more open than he is most of the time. So what has changed? I still feel like we just keep regressing. We just keep regressing back to the median. And I know we've said it before, and we have to say it again. Somehow, some way, Kyle Pitts needs to be your first read. Because let's face it, Marcus Mariota does not go past his first read. He does not go through his progressions more often than not. So somehow, some way, Arthur Smith, and we do still believe he is a great play caller. But if that's the case, Kyle Pitts needs to somehow be your first read, because at the end of the day, we want to have a conversation about the Falcons getting back on track against the Panthers. And that's not a difficult thing to do. I mean, you can score on them if you do the right thing. But if you want to know about predictions on key matchups like that, and why is this a key matchup Sunday? Because the Falcons are still in first place. NFC South is crazy. They're still in first place in the NFC South. Beat Carolina after Carolina beat the Bucs. Guess what? They take over sole possession of first place. So listen, you guys listen to us talk about it here on Locked On Sports Atlanta, but we also want you to check out Locked On NFL here on our Locked On Sports Network on Fridays. They will tell you predictions for Sunday games, Monday games, and I'm willing to bet they might talk about this one just because it has so many implications for this entire division. So again, it might be Saints Raiders because the Saints are still kind of in the mix in a crazy way. Browns Bengals, AFC North is still very much up for granted. So those are the games that if you want to hear about them, you can check out Locked On NFL on your Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever your podcasts are. And I'm sure they, as we will, be talking more about who's going to be and what's going to be the most influential thing for that particular game. I would venture to say it goes right back to the group that we all thought was the best group for the Falcons early season that's now in big trouble. We just got word, Jarvis, late yesterday, AJ Terrell's week to week dealing with that hamstring injury. D. Alfred's day to day also dealing with a hamstring injury. And Jalen Hawkins is out because of concussion protocol. And we are still waiting for word, for example, on Mike Ford. So there's still a lot of moving parts as it relates to the secondary just being depleted. And it kind of makes you think, okay, you could go back and maybe get Avery Williams back in that space. That might give you a little something, maybe more than you got out of Cornell Armstrong, no offense. But on the same token, look at your schedule. Panthers twice, Chargers, Bears, Commanders, Steelers. So is it as dire as it appears today based on that schedule? I mean, I don't know that the Falcons need to necessarily explore the market because all of those games are winnable darn near regardless of who you got in the secondary. Same.
Yeah, I mean, and because that's the thing, right? I'm not too concerned about Jalen Hawkins. Now, granted, he's been a really good player for the Falcons, and I think he's going to show people that he's going to be a guy that's going to be exceptional as well at some point through his development. But with that being said, I'm not too concerned about the safety spot because you got a guy like Eric Harris and Dean Marlowe or Dean Marlowe to be able to step into the fold for right there. But when you talk about not knowing what's going on with Mike Ford and D Offer is day to day, he may or may not play. He had a week off, so he may be on pace to come back. But AJ Terrell being week to week, you know that's the difference. You know what that is. More than likely, I don't expect AJ Terrell to play this week against the Carolina Panthers. So when you got your number one corner down, hopefully D Offer is back. And I still feel, regardless of whether or not how serious you are about making a move, you need to have some conversations. You need to see what's out there. I think you need to make some phone calls about some guys that you may or may not have your eye on. Maybe some guys that may be on, the trade block, or some guys who are looking for a fresh start somewhere, because we are a week away from the trade deadline, T. So I think that's something that I know Terry Fontenot is always talking about, how he's looking to upgrade. So if this situation works out to the point where you're talking about multiple weeks with AJ Terrell, you definitely have to pick up that phone.
Yeah. And it just really depends, because goodness knows the Falcons don't have a lot of capital to work with regarding getting someone that is at, I don't even want to say at AJ's level, but just comparable. But the good news is as well, maybe if you don't get what you need on the defensive side of the ball, at least you're going to get probably better on the offensive side, because Cordero Patterson put a video out yesterday, started showing us sprints and things that he's doing to get himself back. So hopefully they'll get some firepower back on offense, and that can kind of at least mitigate some things on defense. But if it's something that's stressing you out, each and every day as a Falcons fan, you know what you should probably do? You should probably get yourself a Built Bar
Why
because
not?
that's the only thing that's going to be healthy enough for you to be able to weather the storm of what's going to happen at the bins on Sunday. So listen, we tell you guys all the time there's the cookie dough chunk puff. That's the one that has the 100% real chocolate. And that's the one that also only has 160 calories, but you can get 15 grams of protein. So if you think about it, whether you're pacing the floor, from now until Sunday, will AJ play? Willie, won't he? Or you get to Sunday and you find out that some of these guys, unfortunately, are out and that stresses you out. Get yourself a Built Bar. That can really calm your nerves because, hey, I think chocolate is kind of a soothing thing, so to speak. So, again, you can take the locked 15 code, go to built.com. That promo code is going to get you 15% off your first order. So, again, if you want a snack that is at least going to get you through maybe a challenging week as you wait for the Falcons to bounce back, go to built.com, use promo code LOCKED15.
Locked on 15 to get that 15% off. Why? Who doesn't like a discount? Come on now. Y'all get right. Now, T, this is for the culture. It is the intersection between sports, entertainment, the culture, and sometimes whatever the hell we want to talk about because that's just how we get down on this show. Today is no different, T. When you think about like what's going on in the world today, and you sometimes you may be a little bit down and out. But I don't know about you. When I came across this story, when I found out that McDonald's is bringing back the McRib tea. Now, every time they do this, I always say I'm gonna go test it out because I haven't had it in a while. But I think this time around, and they're saying that it's going away for good, and it's supposed to happen on October 31st. And I think it's going to go to early November, and then this is going to be the last time they bring it back. I don't know if I'm too motivated to try that thing out, T. I don't know. I don't know.
No,
Yeah, I'm
no.
not. Yeah,
I
I don't
appreciate
change my life.
right.
Eating Built Bars and stuff. I ain't trying to go for no McRib
Oh,
or
that
whatever that
wasn't my
is.
reason for not going. I was no, I'm not that good, guys. Jarvis is the healthy one here. So, although I need to be because I'm only a week away from homecoming to this vet, but for me, it's just I appreciate McDonald's for trying to do some grown folk stuff, but I tasted that McRib many years ago when it first came out, and I'm sorry, I would just never do it again. Just never ever do it
Mm.
again. And then the other thing is, you know what happens, right? They're going to say they're going to retire it. And then sometime next year, backed by popular
Right.
demand,
Because
they're
who's
gonna,
going to question that, right?
yeah, it's going to be like, just like an athlete. You're just going to
Right.
unretire that thing and it's going to come back and people are going to love it. And we're just going to all ride out into the sunset. But for me, I just have to get like some good, well, I have to get some good ribs like the ones I had at your place. Yeah, yeah. Like when you had,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah, I like
Appreciate that.
that
Thank
kind
you,
of
T.
like a
Appreciate
rib
that.
that
Yeah.
somebody like,
Some real ribs.
yes, yeah. Unless, but listen, if you guys have any recommendations, don't forget to hit us up in the comments because we will check it out and let you know what happens.
And also, you can send us an email as well, atlday1s@gmail.com. Go ahead and send whatever your thoughts and crazy comments. We're accepting all those things. And we may or may not bring it up on the show. It could be negative. Let's be positive. We love constructive criticism, but just be ready for the retaliation. That's how we get down. All right. Now, T, I think that one of the things that we've kind of seen in the past couple of weeks is as far as, big ups. We know how the upsets go down and when it comes to college football. And I think that one of the ones that really stood out over these past couple of weeks was the one down in when Tennessee defeated Alabama. And how it went down. Jermaine Burton apparently allegedly mushed, slapped side of the head a fan who was on the field of play. And I think that one of the things that whether or not however you feel about as far as whether they should be allowed to do those things or whether they should be fined in doing those things and storming the field, that is, I think you putting yourself in a bad situation when you
Yeah.
run out on the field of play
Mhm.
because you don't know what's going to happen when those players are out there. Because I've been on the field myself. I've done
Mhm.
some stuff that on the field. I've done some stuff on the field that I wouldn't necessarily do in real life
Right.
because that's just the emotions and
Yeah, it's in
everything,
the
the
throes of
aggressiveness. It's just
competition.
so much going on within
Yeah.
yourself out there trying to compete and do all those things. And then for you as a layperson to go out there and not knowing what you want to get, I think it's just a bad decision for fans to go out there and put themselves in that situation.
Agreed. And nobody's going to make me believe that Jermaine Burton just pimp slapped somebody just because. Like
Yeah,
something
like,
triggered
come
him.
on now,
Yeah.
come on now.
I just don't think that's the case. And
Yes.
I'm pretty sure Nick Saban probably feels the same. That's why he allowed him to play this
Right.
past weekend. So
Indeed.
we got to think about the context of it. Again, like you said, Jarvis, you've got hundreds, 100,000 kids coming at you full speed, right? You're frustrated from the way the game turned out, and people are probably bumping you left and right, and you don't really know what to do. I'm sure you didn't mean to slap her in that way, but it was just in the heat of that moment. But like you said, people forget that we don't have these kinds of rights to access athletes. I don't care whether they are amateur or professional. We keep thinking that we can be okay being in their personal space, and
Right.
that football field is still his personal space.
Yeah.
We're still making it okay. So I do think the NCAAs will have to look at this. They're going to have to look at it and determine how they're going to restrict it. Because if you think a slap is a big deal, it could get much worse. It can get far worse than that. So, but one thing that's not getting worse, maybe getting better, is the status of Bogdan Bogdanovic. We hear that he was at practice today. He may be, Nate McMillan kind of hinted at him going on that 5-game road trip. Of course, now he's not gone through a full practice yet, Jarvis. He's still limited to light drills and shooting, as our girl Lauren L. Williams over at the AJC is reporting. She, of course, is traveling with the team. So we'll keep you guys up to date, but that is a very good sign that Bogey might potentially travel with the team, because that means he's one step closer to getting back. So we'll talk a little bit more Hawks tomorrow, maybe some keys to the game. And if we get any more information for you guys as far as injury reports, and even like Jarvis said, potential any trade possibilities, we will let you know. And thanks again, as always, for being amongst our over 4,600 subscribers.
Over 4,600 subscribers, and also making ATL Day One's your first listen of the day. But guess what, guys? We want you all to do something else. Make Locked On Sports Today your second listen of the day, because they have so much going on right there, right? Because they talk about the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions to games, big game recaps, and they have the take of the day, which is the best take out of the entire Locked On Sports network. So make sure you go download it on the Odyssey app, and it's on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts.
Do it the same way you do with us each and every day. Check out NFL, or Locked On, I should say, today, but you can still check out NFL Key Predictions at the end of the week. Don't forget. And of course, don't forget to come back tomorrow so we can talk to you about all things ATL. Be safe out there. We'll see you tomorrow.
Y'all come back now, you hear?